You guys would not believe what just happened to me. I'm going to take these off. I don't need these on anymore, and I'll explain why. Now, I only recorded, maybe you'll believe when I tell you, because, I mean, it's me, right? I only recorded about 25 minutes of this episode, only to find out that I had my mic turned off. So, there was zero audio. It is what it is. That gives me a chance to do a little bit better this second go around, though, let's be honest, this has happened to me before. Sometimes when I move clips from, maybe I'm clipping something off YouTube or another website, and I'm putting it into the hard drive, sometimes I turn my mic off so I don't get any ambient sounds from the room, and then I forget to turn it back on. That's what happened this time. So yeah, always, the second go around is just never as good, but I'll do my best. Pardon me, by the way. Okay, I wanted to talk about a few different things in this episode, and just to get a feel for what you guys are seeing going on. So the first thing I want to talk about is this letter from Glock manufacturer to Representative Wes Hardin. Is that his name? From Oklahoma. I want to talk about that. I want to just kind of share my perspective on that. Then I want to talk to you about something I just dug up about Vince Vaughn, the actor. You might really like what I have to say there, like or hate Vince. This is pretty interesting, which then led me to some other stuff from the Crime Prevention Research Center, which is always a great resource if you ever have any questions about just about anything related to anti-gun propaganda, to a, not news, but research, real in-depth quality research. Always go to the Crime Prevention Research Center first, because you're going to learn stuff, especially what the left likes to do with information. And that's what I wanted to dig into, some of the stuff that I found on their website tonight as well, doing some research. Pretty cool stuff. So let's just go ahead and jump right into this Glock letter. Okay, so the 19th, this is 10 days ago already. Man, 10 days went by fast. As I'm recording, it's the night of the 29th, Friday the 29th, so of August, by the way. I don't know why I tell you the date. It doesn't matter. So the 19th, Glock sends this letter, the infamous letter, I guess you could say now, to Representative David Hardin from Oklahoma, who happens to be very pro-gun. He's got a great stance when it comes to the Second Amendment, and the folks in Oklahoma, it's good for him to be there in Oklahoma to help them out. But this letter has been making the rounds. It's all over X. There's videos been made on YouTube about it, and a lot of people are saying that Glock betrayed gun owners. And there's a lot of folks already that are like super pissed. They're ready to boycott Glock. They felt like they've been thrown under the bus, but I don't know if they've got all the information that they need to make a good judgment just by watching a video or two. So I wanted to talk about, I read this article from News 2A. If I remember, I'll link it in probably the first comment under the video if you're watching on YouTube and Rumble. By the way, if you wouldn't mind subscribing, if you like this kind of information, please subscribe and like, and comments are always awesome and very welcome. I have a goal to hit 1,000 subs this year. I think it's definitely doable, but I can't do it without your help. So if you wouldn't mind jumping on there and liking the video, sharing it with your friends, whether it be on Rumble or YouTube or wherever else you're listening to, with Spotify, Apple Podcasts, whatever, give us a review, like it, share it. I mean, that helps me out way more than you guys know. It doesn't cost you anything, but it helps me a ton. It brings my videos up further in the algorithm and allowing people to people see my content. It would help me a bunch. Anyways, so this letter goes from Glock to this Representative Hardin, and people are pissed, like straight up pissed. You know, I wasn't going to show the letter, but I think maybe we should. Let's jump to this here. Takes me a second to get everything set up sometimes. because I think we should talk about this. So here is the first page of this letter. I had to take a screenshot because I couldn't find the actual PDF or anything of it. So again, this is to Representative Hardin. It says, Dear Chairman Hardin, Glock Inc. applauds your leadership in matters of public safety affecting the citizens of Oklahoma. Glock writes to express strong support for state legislation consistent with federal laws that prohibit the manufacture, sale, distribution, possession, and or use of any firearm part designed and intended for unlawfully converting semi-automatic firearms to fully automatic. These firearms parts, also referred to as machine gun conversion devices or MCDs by the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms Explosives, are illegally manufactured and imported by individuals and entities not affiliated with Glock. There is no connection between these MCDs and Glock. Glock does not support, endorse, or in any way condone the manufacture, advertisement, possession, sale, or use of MCDs or any other product intended to illegally modify a firearm. That is an important phrase right there. I'll talk about it here in a little bit. The association of our name and trademark with these devices negatively impacts Glock's brands and our decades-long commitment to safety, reliability, and responsibility. Glock vehemently denounces the illegal modifications of our firearms. Glock has and continues to make significant efforts to disrupt the illegal proliferation of MCDs. We routinely identify websites, social media accounts, and other entities advertising and or selling MCDs and issue cease and desist letters based on trademark infringement. Additionally, Glock reports abuse to targeting MCD websites Glock reports abuse to web hosting services, providers, and files uniform domain name dispute resolution policy, complaints targeting MCD websites to inquire preeminently deactivate the domain names. Glock regularly engages in federal law enforcement agencies and makes referrals, particularly with Homeland Security and Customs and Border Protection, to impede the importation and sale of MCDs. Finally, Glock maintains a robust public safety campaign and year-round digital messaging, which includes awareness about the criminality of MCDs. Glock is fully committed to assisting lawmakers and law enforcement in the prohibition and elimination of illegal MCDs. However, China is primarily responsible for the proliferation of MCDs into, hold on, I got to jump to the next page here. I had to pause it just to dig that up. You don't want to know how long it took me to get to this. For some reason, I couldn't get it to share. Anyway, in the United States, and is commonly understood that enforcement efforts within China are limited or non-existent. Presently, enforcement is heavily reliant on U.S. Customs and Border Protection to interdict illegal shipments of MCDs, and the United States Attorney's Office to prosecute violations of 18 U.S.C. blah blah blah. State criminal MCD laws that mirror federal statutes would better equip law enforcement authorities to remove MCDs from their own communities. It would also empower state and local prosecutors to charge and prosecute holding offenders accountable without having to rely on United States Attorney's Office. Glock fully supports state legislation intended to criminalize the unlawful manufacture, sale, distribution, possession, and or use of MCDs, and urges you to join 27 other states in prioritizing legislation to stop the proliferation of MCDs nationwide. Please let us know how Glock can advocate for such legislation and meaningfully assist this critical endeavor. Thank you for your service and attention to this matter, Mr. Guevara and Miss Connor. from Glock themselves. The last time I recorded this, I did not include the reading of that letter. I thought maybe it was important that we talked about that very thing. I don't know if this letter quite has the impact that a lot of these folks on the social medias and these YouTube videos are giving it. I don't know if it's a fair assessment to say that Glock is throwing gun owners under the bus. Now, we need to understand that these machine gun conversion devices, they're already illegal federally. The Hughes Amendment in 1986 made it illegal for manufacturers to create and sell new machine guns from that point on. Yes, there are ways that new machine guns are manufactured, but not for public use or private use, I should say. If it's for a police department or demo, that's another way to do it. But you have to have specific licensing and you have to deal with the ATF on that matter. But they're non-transferable. So that was 1986 when that took place. But 1996 is when these Glock switches were designed. So 10 years after the fact. So that, in effect, makes every Glock switch that's in the United States, if it's not licensed through or federally, whatever, registered through the feds, it's already illegal. But as we read through the Glock letter, the reason why they're urging these MCDs to be brought down to the state level is it makes it quicker and more effective for the states to prosecute these individuals and get these things off the street, which obviously is tarnishing Glock's name. Specifically, like these laws in New Jersey that are trying to be changed, they're absolutely targeting Glock, claiming that they're responsible. Now, the Protection of Lawful Commerce and Arms Act protects gun owners from the misuse of their product, which should protect Glock in this case, because Glock has nothing to do with these switches. As we read in the letter, they're coming from China. Glock has an interest in getting this stuff cleaned up to keep them out of court. I think this has more to do with Glock being able to focus efforts on Glock manufacturing, design, production, and distribution of their product and not being tied up in court and potentially losing their ability to sell firearms in the United States because of the act of a bunch of thugs who don't care about the law. They don't care about the Hughes Amendment. They're not going through the legal process of procuring these Glock switches. These things are coming across the border. I mean, these Glock switches are really kind of like the fentanyl of the drug world, right? These Glock switches are the fentanyl to the gun community. They're illegal. They're manufactured by somebody that will probably never get caught. They're being pushed in through the black market, probably handed out like candy to these thugs, and really used in inner city and gang crime, not really anywhere else. There might be a few outliers out there, but for the most part, it's happening due to gang activity, which in turn still feeds into the statistics for mass shootings. As long as the criteria is there, the left is going to use this as ammunition, if you will, maybe that's a pun intended, against the gun community, no matter what. No matter what. If they push this into the state level, it's going to be easier to get through the court system faster and will help Glock not get tied up in court. Is it pushing gun owners under the bus? I really don't think so. I don't read the letter that way. I could be wrong. It really is a pain in the butt for Glock to have to deal with this. Why should we care about this? What's the point? Glock, these laws are written in a way. Okay, let's back up. Let's back up completely. Why should we care about this? The anti-gun crowd is really good at playing the long game. They're all about setting up these laws state by state. They don't do it federally because that's too hard and too big of a chunk to take off. you can't just attack the Second Amendment head on. It's not going to work that way. And these anti-gun crowds understand this. So what they do is they start at state levels and they create these laws, but there's always caveats or backdoors into these laws. It starts with these machine gun conversion devices. But if you really think about how these states are writing these laws, it could easily be said that any part that's different than what the manufacturer has put in to this gun specifically. So let's say you buy a sweet trigger, or Geisley or something for your AR. Awesome, great trigger. Well, at some point, maybe, we don't know this for sure, but again, the anti-gun crowd is really good at playing the long game. The way these laws are written, they could easily drop in a section about any kind of modification to any trigger, or to any grip, or to sights, or whatever, which then manipulates the way things are going to be seen down the road. Pro-gun people are really good at not paying attention to what's going on. So as these other states incorporate these laws, at what point do we realize, crap, they've found a way to make any kind of modification illegal at the state level, thus kind of nullifying what we can do as gun owners, especially when it comes to AR-15s. The assault weapons bans across the country are ridiculous, and they include any and every possible modification, like especially in some of these states like California or Illinois, Colorado, Washington. Any kind of simple modification could easily push that gun into this illegal at the state level and nullify the ability of the regular user, which is crazy to think about. They're really good at creating these future laws that we don't seem to pay attention to. This is where I want to hear from you guys. I already said that this letter has caused a massive uprising in my Twitter feed. People are tagging me and all sorts of stuff, and I see these threads about how Glock betrayed us and all this jive. Listen, I'm a Glock fanboy. I love my Glocks. I have a lot of Glocks. They seem to treat me good when I need them. They function every time I need them to work. It's a great product. And it sucks to see, and who knows who else is behind these Glock switches, by the way. It could be something far deep in a conspiracy, by the way. You just don't know. But it sucks to see a product that has nothing to do with Glock being associated with Glock in a lot of violent crime, inner city, disgusting crime. Also, by the way, written in some of these state laws is they are like reducing some of these, what do you want to call it? Jail times or whatever. They're reducing bail. So these criminals get a slap on the wrist. They go right back on the street. They pick up another black market gun with a switch, and they're back at it again. They're not attacking the source of the issue, whether it's at import of these devices. You're not going to go to China. You're not going to stop these companies from China from making these. It's not going to happen. I mean, look at Temu with all the counterfeit stuff that's coming out of Temu. But we can prosecute to the full extent of the law these thugs and these dudes that are using stuff illegally. They're already not obeying federal law. Why don't we prosecute them to the fullest extent of what the law already prescribes? I've mentioned this before. There are over 20,000 gun laws across the country, both at the state and the federal level. Let's use those 10 of those 20,000 laws to put these thugs in jail and keep them off the street, right? So they can't reoffend. This is the issue. Nothing happens to the bad guy. And instead of really trying to fix the problem, they're using it to take away the rights of the millions of law-abiding citizens that have nothing to do with the crime, that are obeying every law that's already out there. It's just more restriction. Long-term, it will end up in some kind of confiscation or something. It's a backdoor into manipulating and taking away our gun rights. And in that aspect, I guess you can see where Glock is maybe supporting some kind of gun control. If I could talk to Glock directly, I would say rescind the letter. This isn't your issue. Your guns are fine the way they're manufactured. You can't be held responsible for the deliberate misuse of your product. It's frustrating. Anyway, chime in, jump on my X account, jump in the comments feed of this video or wherever you're paying attention to this. I would love to hear what you guys have to say about this. Shall we move on to the next story? I think we should. I need a drink. I'm going to pause. It's not going to mean anything to you. All right, on to this next thing. Vince Vaughn. So Vince was interviewed by, I got to get this right because it's late and I'm having a hard time speaking apparently, by GQ UK. So the United Kingdom's version of GQ magazine. Like her or hate him, whatever. I don't care your opinions about Vince Vaughn. I'm really indifferent. I don't know. He hasn't been a real big mainstream actor for quite a while. And he's had some good movies in the past. But he's also known as one of the most pro-gun actors in Hollywood, which is maybe the reason why he doesn't make a lot of movies anymore. I'm going to share this with you because I think this is absolutely intriguing. I saw this on, like I said, I was digging through some of John Lott's information. He had some pretty cool, we'll dig into it. He had some cool stuff that he had reported on and did some research on. And this popped up as one of the things that he had talked about or was digging into. So let me share this screen with you. So, and I'm sure what Vince had to say here was incomprehensible to the British mind. They probably couldn't understand how to get through this conversation, just like they don't know how to get through the door of their dentist office if they have dentists. But Vince is pretty outspoken. He might be more conservative than what we're thinking, which really isn't a good thing for actors in Hollywood these days. The reporter asked him a lot of things. As you can see on the screen right here, you can't really see my mouse, I guess, but he talked about Edward Snowden, how he thinks that he's a hero. They talked about him making movies and how he's dealing with the decline in his acting. But here's what's interesting. We scroll down here. The reporter asks him about gun ownership. And Vince, this isn't going to be shared much on the local media anyway, so I might as well share it here. I'm going to read you what he quoted here, what was quoted. I support people having gun in public, full stop. Not just one in your home. We don't have the right to bear arms because of burglars. We have the right to bear arms to resist the supreme power of a corrupt and abusive government. It is not about duck hunting. It is about the ability of the individual. It is the same reason we have freedom of speech. It's well known that the greatest defense against an intruder is the sound of a gun hammer being pulled back. At all these shootings that have gone down in America since 1950, only one, maybe two, have happened in non-gun-free zones. Take mass shootings. They've only happened in places that don't allow guns. These people are sick in the head and are going to kill innocent people. They are looking to slaughter defenseless human beings. They don't want confrontation. In all of our schools, it's illegal to have guns on campus. So again, these guys again and again, these guys go and shoot up these effing schools.
Watch your profanity.
Because they know there's no guns there. They are monsters killing 6-year-olds. Boom. Vince Vaughn dropping some gun truth to a country that cannot comprehend it. They used to understand the importance of self-defense tools, but not anymore. And I'm sure they were just like, he had to have been just squirming in his chair, the guy interviewing him. On whether guns should be allowed in schools, the question was asked, and Vince says this: of course, You think the politicians that run my country and your country don't have guns in the schools that their kids go to? They do. And we should be allowed the same rights. Banning guns is like banning forks in the attempt to stop making people fat. Taking away guns, taking away drugs, the booze, it won't rid the world of criminality.
Hell yes.
Bro, Vince, I know you're probably not going to watch this video, but thank you so much. Thank you for standing up and explaining something that should be completely understood at a fundamental level about freedoms in the United States and telling somebody in another country how it really is. Like I said, I'm sure this reporter didn't know what to do when Vince started talking about how it's for fighting a tyrannical government, not about hunting ducks. What an amazing conversation. I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall in this interview. Vince brought up some important things though, and this is how I got to this interview. Let's jump to this next thing, and then I'm not going to keep you very much longer. I want you guys to be able to digest this video and go on your merry way. So let's jump to this next topic. So I mentioned the Crime Prevention Research Center. That's how I found out about that Vince Vaughn story. They've gone through and they've updated some of their mass and public shooting, or what I guess it would be a mass shooting. Their research on this kind of data, which again, this is a fabulous resource. If you're ever trying to figure out or extrapolate some data, or maybe you're not sure if your local news is reporting things correctly, maybe something sounds screwy, this is such an amazing resource. I'm going to go back and share my screen again for you. I'm starting to lose my voice. So, detailed information on mass public shootings from 1998 to 2024. Now, this was reported or published in the 2nd, man, I cannot talk, it's getting late, the 2nd of January this year. Still intriguing information. I love all these graphs. They're easy to understand. And I just wanted to go through some of these. This information is available to anybody. Anybody. It's not hard to find. It took 2 seconds. Okay. It took maybe 5 minutes just and not looking very hard on their website. The data is easy to find. Nothing is masked. Nothing is buried under miles of keywords or anything like that. Super easy to find. So I just want to go through each one of these graphs. I've done this before, but it's been a hot minute, and I just wanted to share this with you. Type of guns used in mass public shootings from 1998 to 2024. So all we ever hear is how dangerous the AR-15 is. Used in every mass shooting since the pioneers, which obviously is not true. This is intriguing information, right? Murders only with handguns. That is 51.9% of all public mass shootings. More than half are committed with handguns. Well, that means just under half is AR-15s, right? No. Murders with only rifles, and that is all rifles, not particularly AR-15s, with handguns and rifles, is 13.5%. Murders with only rifles, now not just AR-15s, but all rifles combined, that's 17.3%. So it's not even half as many times where just a rifle was used compared to just a handgun. Rifles have nothing to do with the problem. Neither do handguns, honestly. It's the bad guy. So let's scroll down here. There are tons of links to other graphs and research. This is such an amazing website. I really do like these graphs and stuff. So number of mass public shootings by year from 1998 to 2024. So about late 90s, that's when we really started seeing issues like Columbine, and then it just kind of went up from there. We see copycat patterns. So 1999, there were 6 public mass shootings, and then nothing happened really. It just kind of slowed down. 2003, boom, bump, jumps back up, slowly declines. 2006, bumps up again. 7, 8, and 9 drops back down. And then 2012, boom, we have a spike again. And then it drops back down. It's interesting to see what's going on every year. Even this latest shooter, I'm not going to say his name, but this one in not Massachusetts, Minnesota. Even he said he chose the school, or the church is the same thing, school, Catholic church, because he wasn't going to have any resistance. He put that in his manifesto. The point is to go to places, like Vince Vaughn said, places that are going to have little to no resistance. But I digress. Oh, and the other thing, I was bringing up the copycat. That's what made me think it was the copycat thing. That's what happens. The media pushes this information and makes these deranged lunatics. It makes them crave this fame, to go out and have their name remembered. That's really what they're looking for. They want to have a body count because the last guy, man, he was famous. So that's why I'm not going to say his name. We don't want these people to become famous. They're disgusting individuals. All right, the next one down is number murdered in these mass public shootings. So in, let's see, what was it, 2017? Look at 94 that year. But on the graph, there was 4 mass shootings for that year. So that is kind of interesting. You'd think as the number of mass shootings go up, you'd think the casualty rate would go up as well, but that's really not the case. Number of people murdered per attack. So 2017, 2018, was that was the, no, that wouldn't be it. I was going to say, wasn't that the Las Vegas shooting? Was that 17, 16? That number should have been way higher then. Anyway, not that this matters, but it's still an interesting graph. The race of these mass shooters. Don't worry, or worry, either way. I don't think color has anything to do with this. I think it has to do with a deranged individual. Majority of public shooters, mass shooters, are white. So, I mean, that's just what it is. The race of victims, again, majority white, as we see down here. Well, let me scroll up. I just realized I have that awfully big. Let me make this smaller for you. Sorry. Yeah, there we go. Now you can kind of see some of the words with the graph. Shooters who were racist, anti-immigrant, or white supremacist. That's weird. Aren't we told that they always have some kind of a racist bent to them? No, the majority of these mass shooters in that same time frame, 98 to 2024, they weren't racist. Gender, we already knew this. A vast majority, of these shooters are male. So, yeah, the media not really lying when they say that white males commit most of these mass murders. That is actually true. Now, by total people killed by mass shooting and type of weapon. So, it looks like the majority of time has been with multiple weapons, so rifle and handgun. Just rifle is lower than you think it would be, at least what the media would say. By age, this is something else that's kind of interesting. So between 21 and 30 is the highest demographic that commit these crimes. The age distribution, almost 20% of them were between ages of 21 to 25. Now, this is the one that's been getting a lot of heat. This is actually why I wanted to look for this research were these next 2 graphs. Percent of mass shootings by trans individuals from 2018 to 2024. So there's that time frame. They weren't, like, the majority of them were not trans. But the ratio, and this is the one that's getting a lot of heat, the ratio of attacks by these groups and the shares of their population. Though these individuals that are on all sorts of different hormones and things that are not necessarily for their body to consume as far as, hormone replacement, because they only make up less than 1% of the population, their ratio is going to be much, much higher. I was looking for another graph or a list of the last several mass shooters, or several of the last few mass shooters that seem to have some gender identity issues. It's not that hard to look at. You look at the Tennessee, the tons of them actually had some issues with transitioning. I'm not saying that everyone that is trans has a propensity of violence, but it seems that there is some issues with that transition process that is causing some issues that need to be looked at. Whether mass shooters have seen mental health. I thought this one was interesting. Have these shooters that are causing these, have they talked to medical professionals? Yeah, over half of them have talked to medical professionals. This should alarm us because they've apparently should have been able to have been helped in some way, or they were looking for an avenue or an out for help. I can only assume that. But they had some mental health care. Those that survived, did they survive the attack or not? 42% of them committed suicide. 41%, which I thought was an interesting number, didn't. They survived the attack. And 17% either suicide by police or were stopped by the police. What about, does military create the propensity of violence in mass shootings? No. According to this research, no. 80% were not in the military. This is the one that we need to understand, and this is what Vince Vaughn was going towards in his interview. Percent of mass shootings between 1998 and 2024 in gun-free zones. 82% of these events took place where no guns were allowed. Why are these individuals looking for places for gun-free zones? Why are they seeking those out? Because there's no resistance. They have longer time to commit heinous acts. Where if they knew there was a place where there's lots of guns, like they're not going to bust into a gun store and expect to have a high casualty rate. They're looking for soft targets, schools, churches, malls, anywhere where guns are not allowed. That's why they go there, because it's fish in a barrel for them. What about if we go back from 1950 to 2024? So, a much grander data range. 92% of them took place in a gun-free zone. This is what's so important to understand. Are we caving to these leftist ideas about gun-free zones for safety? This is a crazy idea. They say more guns equals more crime and more death. Only in a gun-free zone, apparently. By not allowing legally responsible, law-abiding gun owners from carrying a firearm as a life-saving tool, by prohibiting them to go to these places, we look at this data, the numbers aren't lying to us. It's right in front of your face. Gun-free zones have a much higher chance of being a place of one of these mass attacks. It's happened since the 1950s. Yet, these anti-gun politicians want to push more and more gun-free zones. Is it hyperbolic to think that that's only going to create the number of casualties and the number of shootings in these gun-free zones because there's more gun-free zones across the country? Maybe. I mean, that's not, you can't just say that's the way it's going to be. But the data could obviously suggest that that could easily be the case. What about universal background checks? We hear this all the time. If there was just universal background checks, these shootings wouldn't have happened. Well, how many of these could have been stopped? 0. 0 of these could have been stopped by universal background checks. 100% of them wouldn't have been stopped because universal background checks are not a solution. These individuals are going to get a firearm some way or another. They're going to steal them. They're going to... Some of them have passed background checks. They've gone through the process that these anti-gunners wanted so badly in the 80s and 90s. But now they're saying that we have to do a background check on everything. It wouldn't have mattered. It wouldn't have mattered. Then we scroll down more. It goes by state. I thought this was interesting. Mass public shooters per million by state. DC has the highest number. Well, probably not anymore. I want to say before Trump did this federalization of the police force in Washington, D.C., that they were having an average of like 1.2 murders every day, which is incredible. A murder every day in Washington, D.C. I'm sure that number's gone down. By state, and I'm sure when you dive into the population, because they're going by million, not per capita. I don't know what the term is per million, but Maine, it's not a very populated state, so they're going to have a higher number with their larger population density and a smaller state, is what I meant to say. But it's interesting because my state isn't listed on here, and I know that there was at least one attack during that time frame. Anyway, I thought that was rather interesting information, especially. I mean, I wanted to double check Vince Vaughn's comments about since 1950, and it turns out he's fairly accurate. He must be paying attention to John Lott's research as well. Anyway, that's pretty much what I wanted to talk about. I really think it's important that we understand what's going on before we make these rash, emotional decisions. Just like this Glock newsletter, the Glock letter to the Oklahoma guy, the representative. Don't just jump on the bandwagon and say, I'm going to kick Glock in the nuts and I'm never going to buy another Glock again. Let's understand the why before we really have a knee-jerk reaction. Do I agree with Glock's letter? No, not necessarily, because like I said, I think it's a backdoor way through these state rules to cause more issues for law-abiding gun owners. But I think it's important to understand why they're doing it. It also opens up our eyes in other things that are not being taken care of, like shutting down the influx of these Glock switches. Where are they coming from? Why can't we shut down the pipeline? And why aren't we prosecuting these individuals that are breaking federal law? Don't take it to the state level. Let's prosecute them on the federal level and put them in federal prison where they can really enjoy the gang life in these prisons. They would do that with us. If we broke any kind of suppressor law, anything that has to do with the NFA, it's 10 years in federal prison for you or me. Why isn't it the same for these individuals that are repeating these same violations over and over again, but because they live in these inner cities, maybe they get felt bad for it and they have looser sentencing. It makes no sense to me. I thought it was really intriguing about Vince Vaughn. I mean, I have a lot more respect for him. Not that I had no respect for him in the past, but I didn't realize he was as pro-gun as he is. Vince, if you're listening to the show, dude, you're welcome on anytime. Just have your people call my people. And thank you for standing up for the American citizen across the pond. That was such... I wish I could have been there. That would have been so cool. And also want to say a huge thanks to John Lott and the Crime Prevention Research Center for doing all this in-depth research. Please, if you have any questions about how or what the numbers are about a certain thing as far as firearms are concerned, that is my go-to source, the Crime Prevention Research Center. John and his researchers are amazing. And I wanted to show you these things. Actually, I was trying to find some other data. I really wanted to talk about Gavin Newsom's complaint and J.B. Pritzker's and all these recently talking about how crime in Republican states, murders, particularly homicides with guns in red states, is far, far greater than in blue states. But once you start looking into where the concentration of these crimes are inside the states, they're almost always, not 100%, but almost always in Democrat-ran cities with stricter gun laws. Almost always. So don't buy into the blue states are safer, because they're not. Any of us can get on any kind of news site and see how Chicago's doing, how Los Angeles is doing, how Portland is doing, how Memphis is doing. It doesn't take a genius to cut through the sleight of hand that these politicians are doing. Make no mistake, Gavin Newsom is going to be running for president, and I believe he's going to be rather formidable for whoever our presidential nominee is going to be. Republicans really need to get ahead of some of these issues, like we mentioned before with the Glock letter. We need to get ahead of these issues before they're a big issue, including anything related to the Second Amendment. I wanted to talk about some other stuff, like what the DOJ is or isn't doing as far as the Second Amendment is concerned. There's a lot of stuff that's come out over the last couple of days that is extremely frustrating, whether it be the engaged in business rule that should be tossed out, or there was a suppressor lawsuit that this individual, well, it was the Fifth Circuit Court. I'll mention here, I don't have all the data. I wanted to do some more research on it. Maybe we'll talk about it in the next episode. But the Fifth Circuit Court, I'm trying to speed this up so you're not here for very much longer. The Fifth Circuit Court claimed that the NFA paperwork, fingerprints, photographs is okay. It's constitutional because it's comparable to a shall issue process in some of these states that have shall issue concealed carry permits. And it's not the same. It has nothing to do with the same. It is an unlawful tax and impedance on somebody's constitutional right, and the Fifth Circuit got it completely wrong. I don't know where that's going to happen. I already know that a lot of these gun groups are livid and they're working on lawsuits already. That could make it to the Supreme Court. I'm wondering if that's why the Supreme Court hasn't taken issues on like some of these assault weapons cases and NFA stuff, because they're waiting for a lot more precedents to come into their courtroom so they can dig into it. I don't know. I am not a justice. I don't think I'll ever be a Supreme Court justice, so I don't have to worry about that. But what I will always be is a voice for the Second Amendment for you. Again, do me a favor as we close this out. Make sure you like and share this video. I would truly appreciate it. I have a goal of 1,000 subs before the end of this year, and you can help me achieve that goal. Like, share, subscribe, all that stuff on every platform that you get my podcast on. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcast or any of the podcast forums, give me a good rating, give a comment, and share it with somebody. If you're on YouTube or Rumble, which chances are sooner or later I'm going to end up probably just being exclusively on Rumble because YouTube is YouTube, please like the show, subscribe to the show, leave comments. All this stuff brings me up in the algorithm. It doesn't cost you anything, but it lets our voices to percolate more to the top and more likely to be suggested to new viewers. We need to get out our cause for the Second Amendment. Owning a gun should be known as completely normal in this country, because it is normal, and people need to be more outspoken about it. That's it. I love you guys. You guys are awesome. Don't forget, you need to take people shooting. We need to grow the family. Don't forget to do that. That is so stinking important. I cannot express how important that is. Also, stay range-minded. Love you guys. Stay safe. It's getting silly outside. Peace.